Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Blue Collar Real Estate. I'm Greg Mayo.
And I am Ryan Herget. I'm excited to sit down, Greg. It's been a minute. What's
Dude,
going on, man?
We got a lot going on today. First of all, we actually have a real sponsor.
We do. I could not be more happy about this. So, there's no new, massage parlors / cooking trucks that are sponsoring the show right now.
No.
Greg, tell us about it. I'm excited about this.
So our sponsor now is Stacy Mayo and the Scott Miller team at Ruoff Mortgage.
They're awesome. Awesome.
Stacy Mayo. Sounds familiar, right?
I think I've run across her a time or two.
I tell people we're related by marriage, ours. But anyway, it just, Stacy, the Scott Miller team, and the whole Ruoff company, you've dealt with them for years.
Absolutely.
And they just do a killer job. And I'll tell you something, and you know this to be true. Correct me if I'm wrong. We're right here on the camera. You tell me if I'm wrong, I'll eat it. But I'm telling you right now, when you send an offer in on a property, that listing agent, one of the first things they're going to look at is who are they pre-approved with.
100%. In fact, to take that one step further, I'm dealing with this right now, okay? There's a couple lenders, they shall not be named in this podcast, but there are a few lenders that don't exactly have the sterling reputation that a company like Ruoff does.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's because maybe they don't do what they say they're going to do. They don't get things done on time, or they just simply don't return phone calls, all challenges that we experience. Well, that's one of the things with Ruoff, and almost everybody that I've ever encountered there, especially Scott and Stacy, is they do all of those things incredibly well. And when you get an approval letter, you don't have to even call to, as a listing agent, I don't even have to call and say, because I know they've done their job, because that's the reputation that they adhere to. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And it's company-wide, and Scott's whole team, they just do a fantastic job. So when I submit an offer, I put that at the top. Yeah. Before the offer, the first thing I want the listing agent to see is who I'm using. I'm with Ruoff because they know they're going to get it done.
Because it's peace of mind to that seller that the job's simply going to get done, exactly as you just said. And I've been working with Ruoff since 2013, and it's only gotten better. They're the fastest growing mortgage company in the state of Indiana. They've absolutely blown up. They sponsored an Indy car and won the Indy 500 a few years ago. They sponsor, this music center, and they've done, Mark Music has done such an extraordinary job of helping grow that company, instilling this amazing culture of great people. And that's what I love about it, is when you call them, it's not just one person there. It's all the way from top to bottom. Yeah. Everybody is working in the same direction, which is what you want in any company, especially when you're going through the process and the emotional experience of buying a house. So
all that said, we couldn't be happier to have them on board.
Now, we're super thrilled. And just one last little side story on that. So I've been doing this way too long, the business of reals, not way too long, I should say, but a long ass time. And Scott Miller actually was working with my dad back in 2001 when my dad was still in real estate, and I met Scott back then. So this dude has got just this extraordinary wealth of information. I know he's done a lot to really help get Stacy's career off the ground and rock and rolling in a very short period of time. So, again, just extraordinary people doing extraordinary work.
Yeah, I couldn't be happier. And I was using Ruoff before Stacy got there. And then she got there and, of course, just does a phenomenal job. But so we don't have any fake sponsors anymore.
Well, thankfully, we've got real sponsors that have a very strong impact on the work that we do, and can certainly help anybody out there that's listening out. So reach out to Stacy. All of their information's on the screen right behind us here. So anything that we can do to help answer any questions and connect you with good people that are going to help make the home buying experience easier for you, that's certainly what we're here for. Now, Greg, before we transition into what we're going to talk about today, which is, we're going into the spring real estate season, and that's renting. Do I continue paying rent, or do I actually buy a house right now? We're going to spend some time and really dissect the pros and cons, because I certainly do think buying a house is not for everybody. Depending on their lives, what's going on in life, it may not be the best fit. And before we do that, though, you have a really awesome story that I have to pull out of you from your trip to Chicago yesterday involving an elevator.
So
I'm going to need the voices in this, too.
Oh, no. Well, let me tell you about the parking garage, because this part freaked me out. I haven't been to Chicago in a long time. I don't go to Chicago often because traffic's a nightmare, and luckily, I had a impasse, or whatever the hell it's called, with our rental car, and was able to breeze through the tolls, but traffic's a nightmare. Well, anyway, so we get downtown Chicago, right by the Federal Building, and I go to park. I see a parking garage. I'm like, hey, this is easy. I've done this before. I know what I'm doing. So I pull up in the parking garage, and this guy comes walking up to the window. And he says, take ticket. What?
In that tone, correct?
Yeah.
In that voice, yes.
Big old dude. Like my height, right? He's like 6 foot tall, but probably 250 pounds. big old dude, big coat on. He says, "You take ticket, leave keys in cup holder." I'm like, what?
Seems safe and legit.
Right?
There's never been anything crazy happen in Chicago.
No, and not that there's any Russian collusion, but I'm just saying the guy was like, and I'm like, what? I don't understand what we're doing. And he rolled his eyes at me and he went, "You take ticket, you put keys in cup holder. I take your car. You come back, I give you car." Now, I don't think I believed him, but I was a little uncomfortable, so I went, okay, I'll just go now. So I got out of the car, and it was there when I got back.
Wow.
Fantastic.
That's like winning right there.
But, yeah, that guy made me a little uncomfortable.
That's fun. So Greg's got another story we'll share for the next episode of Blue Collar Real Estate coming up here next. But if you're also looking to hire anybody for voice impersonations, I highly recommend this guy right over here. So especially if you need a Russian accent or an Italian accent, you've got it pretty well covered. So.
Yeah, if there's any market for Bill Clinton, we can still do a mean Clinton. But Ross Perot's long gone, so never mind that. We do have, and I want to get into this rental thing, but we're starting to get letters from people listening to the show.
We are, thankfully. Yeah, it's been fun to just get a little feedback, hear what's going on. We've actually got some people that are listening, apparently, so It's pretty awesome.
More than just our family and friends. So we got a letter from Monty from Grand Island, Nebraska.
Right on.
And he asked, what is the airspeed velocity of a laden swallow?
If you're watching YouTube, look at my face right now, because that was my answer.
Well, Monty, I have to ask, if you're watching, is it an African or a European swallow? See, in order to maintain airspeed velocity, a swallow needs to beat its wings approximately 43 times a second. But
that's a lot.
The European swallow, only weighing 5 ounces, couldn't possibly carry a coconut, for example. And although an African swallow theoretically could carry a coconut, they're non-migratory. So, Monty,
we thank you.
I hope that helped.
Thank you. That is the scientific explanation to the answer that you sought. So.
Anyway, so
I'm sorry. Go ahead, my friend. Go ahead.
I feel like, you ever watch those Goofy videos?
All the time.
With Damien?
Who hasn't watched the Goofy videos?
Where he... Oh, never mind. The camera's on me. I don't want to do it. Because I don't know what my face does when I do the Goofy voice. But anyway... let's get it. What are the benefits of renting, Ryan?
I'll tell you what, there are a lot of benefits of renting, actually. And so as real estate agents, this is probably going to come out of, people are like, what the hell are you guys talking about this? Well, truly, I rented for a couple years just here recently when I had an opportunity to sell a house and wasn't exactly sure where I wanted to go next, didn't know what I wanted to buy, and really wasn't sure if I was going to be staying in the state or looking at some other options from a career standpoint within real estate. And I rented for a couple years here, and this is just 2 or 3 years ago. And I'll tell you what, there are some benefits, such as if you have a roof problem, it's, dude, will you come fix this roof for me?
Right.
It's, if I don't want to fix something, it's, dude, will you come fix this for me real quick? And there's a lot of peace of mind and simplicity that goes with renting something, especially if you're renting from the right type of company, which is a whole other story.
Right.
But it's, there's a lot of peace that goes into that for the right type of rental property. And on top of that, I feel, if, let's say you're relocating to a new market and you're not sure exactly where you want to land yet. Yeah, maybe you've heard some people that, you're working with say, oh, you need to go to this part of town or this part of town or this part of town. But you really don't know if that's where you want to land. And so do you actually want to drop the money and invest in a property until you're pretty certain that this is where you want to be?
Yeah, because the initial investment with rentings can be considerably lower than buying.
It can be, although depending on the loan program that you're
right.
pursuing, it may not always be, because a lot of places when you're paying rent, and we'll talk more about this here in a minute, is, you've got to put first and last month's rent. Well, as we're going to explore here, rent's gotten relatively expensive, at least here in the central Indianapolis area. And, when you're talking first and last month's rent, that's sometimes $1,500 or, $1,500 both ways. So $3,000, hell, and a lot of times that's almost a down payment.
And a security deposit.
Absolutely. Pet deposit.
And so that's part of the challenge of renting, is because inventory is low, and there's not a lot of houses for people to buy, people still need somewhere to live.
Absolutely. Always.
And so then rents go up. and exponentially so, by the way.
And we've seen that a lot here in the last 10 years, specifically in the Indianapolis area. Again, is what we're referring to is rents have gone up. You used to be able to rent a 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,600 square foot ranch home for $1,200. That exact same house now in most parts of town is $1,500 to $1,600 for that exact same home. And again, that's fine. It's certainly a lot of money going out when you're spending $1,500 a month on rent. I can't do math very well in my head, but that's around $18,000 a year, if I'm not mistaken. That's just simply gone at the end of the day.
Well, you're building equity for someone else.
Sure as hell are.
Which is really nice of you.
It's a gift.
Right.
It's a gift.
Hey, I'm a giver. I like to give. Give me your keys. Anyway, and many times when you're renting, at least for us, and we rented several times over the years, but it just doesn't quite ever feel like home.
Right, because you're not necessarily going to make the improvements that you would want to make that your actual home. The place where you want to set up shop. Maybe raise your kids, maybe not, but just the place that you truly want to call home. Again, I'm not saying renting's a bad idea at all, because I think depending on where you're at in life, what season of life you're in, it can certainly be the best option for you.
Yeah.
And if I'm talking to a client on the phone and they're just really uneasy about maybe making the commitment to purchase something, look, let's just go rent this. I actually have a spreadsheet of all of the apartments that offer short-term rentals. So if that's you, I will share that spreadsheet with you. I'll tell you which ones are my favorite, all around, on each side of town, because that's sometimes the best way I can provide value to the people that I'm trying to help, navigate the process of where do they want to land. And sometimes that is just getting them positioned in the right space to rent for a little while, get comfortable with where they want to be. And if they do decide 6 months, a year later that they do want to purchase something, they're always calling me back, because again, I'm always taking the approach that I want to make sure that I'm doing what's best for them at that stage of their life.
You're the guy that helped them, not the guy that tried to sell them something.
Precisely.
I tell you another challenge with renting, and I got to share this. Years ago, we rented a house, my family, and so the challenge is this. A lot of times landlords don't take care of the properties like they should.
Never heard that.
We rented a house that literally had mushrooms growing in the bathroom between the tub and the tile floor.
That's sexy.
At the time, I was a contractor. I contacted the landlord. I told him what was going on. I told him what the likely fix was. He never fixed it. So every few weeks, we had to literally scrape out the mushrooms.
That is nasty.
Clean the area. I caulked that joint several times, but it was coming up from underneath, so it was...
Makes me want to throw up in my mouth a little bit hearing that, actually.
If you'd have had that McDonald's coffee I had earlier, you would be throwing up in your mouth. But there was nothing I could do about it. I couldn't compel him to fix it.
Right. And you certainly, you can make them do that. Which involves going to court generally and, pursuing it up that ladder, which who has the time or wants to take the time to do that, and so certainly there's some challenges that come with that, trying to think of, a few more benefits, I'm going to play one side of this, you play the other, but, some other benefits of actually renting though, it's oftentimes a less expensive way to get into something, because I can tell you this. I've got a client right now that purchased a home about 6 years ago, and maybe they didn't maintain it as well as they could have, but we're getting ready to sell it here in a couple weeks. And between the roof, the AC, and then also some bricks that they just didn't get the water away from the house, they're looking at almost $24,000 in just ugly money, as you always like to say, repair costs to get this home in market-ready condition. Because obviously if there's that degree of work or scope of work that needs done, it's not going to sell to somebody that's looking to buy it to live in it, because very few people have the wherewithal, the finances, or the ability to do that kind of work.
Because they want HGTV ready.
HGTV ready,
yeah,
rock
dog.
and roll. That's it. That's it. So those are things that as a homeowner you have to be very conscientious of. As you are a homeowner now. You are the one who's responsible for taking care of the mushrooms growing in the bathroom,
right?
And the preventative maintenance to hopefully keep that from happening to begin with. But again, if you're looking for a short-term option, or you're just maybe you're in a situation where you don't want to hire a property manager and you're traveling a lot for work, yeah, renting a place could absolutely be the best fit for a period of time. But if you're going to be planting roots in a certain location for a period of time, I can't think of very many examples where it makes sense to rent long-term versus purchasing. And I'm going to give you an example of that right now. Another client I was meeting with on Tuesday this week, I helped her purchase a home in 2013. Okay, she bought it in January of 2013, and she paid $124,000 for it. Her monthly payment is $1,024 a month. Okay, and I think she had like a 4.25% interest rate or whatever it was at the time. Relatively good interest rate, but paying just over $1,000 a month. She has a 2,800 square foot home on the west side of Indianapolis, and that's what she was paying. And I showed this to her. I said, Anita, if you were going to be renting this exact same house, here's what the rental comps on this were. Because she was kind of debating, and we're going to talk about this in a later episode, but do I want to sell or do I want to keep that property for a rental?
Yeah.
Right? Because if she was going to rent that exact same house, she could rent that house for $1,800 a month right now versus paying $1,024 a month for a house payment. And as you said, we all have to live somewhere, right? You always have to live somewhere. You always have to be paying for something. But here's a gargantuan benefit of owning a home. Fast forward the 7 years since she bought that house. She paid $124,000 for it in 2013. Fast forward to spring of 2020, we're going to put that thing on the market for $195,000.
Wow.
Wow. That's insane growth by making her regular monthly house payment. Now, here's the bad part of that. Okay, that's a difference of, $70,000. Okay, she's got foundation problems that she still has to deal with. She's got a chimney that's falling away from the house. Literally, it's backing away from the house. So we're going to have to address that for a buyer. But worst case scenario, we're going to spend $20,000 on doing all of that stuff. We're going to spend $20,000 on foundation work, on getting this chimney, re-anchored in to get it done right.
And she doesn't owe $124,000 today.
No, absolutely not. She owes like $100,000, like a little over $100,000 on it. She's still going to walk away with over $48,000 in her pocket.
Damn.
By just living in the same house, by making her regular payment that she's going to have to pay to live somewhere, right? So by doing all of those things and doing the ugly money rehab, she's going to walk away with as much money as a lot of people make in a year.
And if her rent had been $1,000 a month in 2013 in the same house, it's not now.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that rent. Yeah. How many people have you talked to that are paying rent that are saying, oh my gosh, I'm so thankful that my landlord hasn't raised rent on me? Those are words that don't come out of a tenant's mouth ever, because every year they call us bitching that, man, the damn landlord's raising my rent another $100 a year or whatever it is.
Right. Every
single year.
And so when you buy, you buy on a fixed rate mortgage. Whatever your payment is today, your payment will be in 15 years.
That's it.
Within reason. I mean, property tax.
Things like insurance, taxes, right. You're absolutely right.
But another benefit of buying as opposed to renting is you're building equity for yourself, like your example right there.
Yeah.
You can do what you want with the house.
Precisely. I mean, you can do whatever you want to do with the house. I mean, if you want to turn your master bedroom into a studio, you can do that. You can make the changes to do that. And that's so awesome. If you own the house, you can make that investment and you can do whatever the hell you want to do with that property versus having to call the landlord. Maybe they say yes, maybe they say no, but you can do what you want with your property to make it what you need it to be for you and your family or whoever's going to be being there.
And the maintenance has the opportunity to be done right.
Absolutely.
Not, the landlord sends in some $10 an hour Chuck with a truck, if your name's Chuck, no offense, to do a half-assed repair just to get it done.
Right. You can call one person and get it done the right way the first time. And again, you're protecting the asset that is your home at that point.
And home, right. So you have a sense of home, a sense of roots, a sense of I'm a part of this neighborhood, this community, whatever it is. And the biggest thing to me, no landlord ever.
Maybe a homeowner association that says you can't paint your house pink, but not always.
and I'm lucky. Our HOA is fantastic. The people on the board, they're real easy to get along with and talk to. But I can tell you, first house we ever bought, like a little over 20 years ago, we were in an HOA, and through a strange turn of events, I ended up the president of the board. Not something I set out to do, but I was asked to, and I did. Well, anyway, so I'm sitting there. Everybody knows where I live. It's a small neighborhood. Lady comes up, knocks on my door. She says, we're getting a new door put in. I need to get the color approved for the front door. I'm like, it's your house. I don't care. Paint it whatever color you want. Well, she painted it like Barney purple.
Oh, that's a sexy
like
color.
The color of that cord there.
Right.
And I had 4 or 5 people complaining at me because I let her paint her door Barney purple. I'm like, what? Is this all we have to do with our time right now?
Yes, it is unfortunately all some people have to do with their time.
And it looked good.
Yeah.
I told her to paint the shutters along with it, so it matched. I wasn't on the board much longer.
No, just served one term on that one.
Yeah, I got removed. They impeached me, but it didn't pass the Senate, so I finished my term. Sorry, no, we're not doing politics. Knock it off. So some of the challenges to buying, though. Maintenance costs are on you.
Absolutely. Yep.
Your furnace goes out. That's your $6-8 grand. Maybe a slight discount if you call Mike Warren at Warren Mechanical.
There you go. There you go.
But a little bit more upfront investment, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing that we don't really talk about from a business standpoint, but that is a reality, especially given my last story, the first house we bought, your neighbors may be asshats.
Yeah, and
And
that's
you're
the
kinda
technical
stuck there.
term too. Is being an asshat, and that is tough. I've legit had this happen more times than I can count, at least 10 to 12 in the last probably 5 years, where the people bought a house in an area and just hated being there.
Yep.
They just there was either a combination of neighbors that weren't awesome. It was the builder in one case that they were not even a little bit happy with, so frustrated that in fact they decided to sell the house and move on to something else. But yeah, you don't have control over that sometimes. So if you get a neighbor that makes life more challenging, like people that have problems with purple doors, then then it can certainly be a challenge. I mean, going back to one of the first communities I ever lived in, actually it was the second house I ever bought in 2006, and our neighbors at the time, we bought this house in a relatively nice community in Avon, Indiana, and our neighbors were those people. They were those people.
Nice.
And we could not do anything about it because we did not have a homeowner association to do anything about it for. And they let their dogs run everywhere. I mean, it was so bad that at the point this little dog bit my wife on her leg 3 times, to the point where we're calling the Humane Society, we're calling animal control, because these neighbors were those people. To the point where we ultimately just ended up selling the house and moving on because it was just so terrible, and they were just those people that didn't care. They weren't going to do anything about it, and the more that you said, the more they did it, just because that's kind of who they were.
Nice. Yeah, those kind of people are awesome. I'm lucky in this house we bought in 13 because all my neighbors are super cool. The guy across the street's a World War II veteran. Woodworker. The guy 2 doors down from him just moved into the neighborhood a year ago. They've only been here a few years, immigrated from China. He's a woodworker.
That's cool.
So we shoot the breeze a lot. But, yeah, all my neighbors are friendly for the most part. And you're right. That makes a huge difference in just day-to-day living.
Yeah, just your experience and where you call home every day. And, I can tell you, I mean, I've got so many friends that are clients that have bought homes in areas that, I mean, they tell me these stories of these block parties that they put on, or of all the neighbors kind of coming over and gathering. And that's what community is all about in my mind. I mean, what's better than having awesome people to come hang over at night, maybe have a beverage in the backyard, or just hang out while the kids play in the cul-de-sac, or whatever it may be for you. There's nothing better than having a great sense of community like that, in my opinion, at least for me. And
it makes you happy to be home and be outside. But absolutely. So to kind of wrap up, those are some of the benefits of buying. There's also challenges, and there are benefits and challenges with renting. We didn't put this episode together today, folks, to sway you one way or the other. But just to talk about some of the different things that maybe you hadn't thought about yet.
Just simply a transparent look at both sides of it, I feel. And, just letting people know and creating some awareness around, truly those pros and cons that not everybody always considers. It's easy to watch HGTV or Bravo and you see these shows where, $1 million listing or Flip That House, where they go in, they buy this house for no money down, they use other people's money to, get it all fixed up, and then all of a sudden everything's perfect in Mayberry. Well, it's simply not the case of how it works, which is actually
unfortunately not.
The whole premise for how we started and why we started this podcast was to kind of tell the story what happens between sets of on HGTV. So.
And I think that's exactly what we're doing. If you do decide to buy a house, of course, Ryan or I, either one would love to help you, and we know where you can get financed. You should call Stacy Mayo with the Scott Miller team at Ruoff Mortgage. And we will link in the show notes Stacy's information, as well as a link that's up here on the screen, ruoff.com/Stacy Mayo. That'll be a quick app you can do online.
Well, and I think one of the important things, and maybe you're that person that's just maybe starting to kick around the idea of thinking, should I do this or not? One of the things that I know Stacy and Scott always do, and they're more than happy to provide, is just simply a consultation. Like, does this make sense? Maybe maybe you're concerned about things like, my credit's a little bit jacked up. I'll never be able to buy a house. Well, you never know until you ask. Right? You never know if you can do something until somebody tells you that you can, oftentimes. And a lot of times, any goal is accomplishable as long as you have the right plan behind it. And maybe you've had a situation come up and you just simply need to, you and I and Stacy were having this conversation a couple Tuesdays ago when we were sitting down making some calls. And, one of the things that she brought up that she loves doing is just taking the time to make sure somebody knows what their options are. And, she was telling us the story of a first-time buyer she was working with and just walking through some credit challenges that they had experienced. Yeah. She literally built a plan for them, gave it to them on a piece of paper and said, if you do everything on this plan, we will be able to buy a house in about 4 months. That was it. All these people needed was a little direction, a little guidance, and somebody to say, yes, you can. And that's somebody she was then able to help with a house. And that's what I love and appreciate about what they do is they're not just going to say, yeah, we can, no, yes or no, without any further explanation. It's, no, here's how we can do this, and I'm in this with you to make it happen.
So does that sound like you? Let us know. We can get you connected.
What else do we need to hit on this topic, Greg? Is there anything we've missed when it comes about just different pros and cons of renting versus buying?
Well, like we talked about before the camera started rolling, we could go on for a couple hours getting into this. But I think what we've given is a good cursory overview, if you will, of challenges and opportunities for both.
Yeah.
And now it's time for people to make the decision, do they want to pursue one or the other? If you can, we can help you with both.
That's it. And whatever hurdles are in the way, maybe you don't think that you have enough money to buy a house. Maybe you're just not concerned, or you're concerned about credit, or hell, maybe you started a new job and you think, somebody once told you that you have to be on a job for 3 to 5 years. That is just simply not the case. There is lending options out there regardless of your situation, and it's just about asking the questions and seeing what can be done if owning a home is your goal.
And if somebody comes up to you and says, "Give me your keys, I give you ticket." Just do what they say.
And we're going to wrap the show up with that. So for this edition of Blue Collar Real Estate, I am Ryan Herget.
And I'm Greg Mayo.
And if you took something away from this, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit that review button. We'd love to hear your feedbacks. Monty out in Grand Island, hopefully that answered your question. If you have any specific real estate questions, we can definitely assist with that as well. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.